In today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 spiritual practices that I use to help me overcome erythrophobia. So stick around.
Gotta stand up straight. Gonna rise like a champion.
Let's jump into these 5 practices, these spiritual practices that help me overcome erythrophobia. All right, number 1 is alone time. Does that make you nervous to hear me say, get alone? So many people struggle to spend time by themselves. Like, you are literally running from your thoughts. You're running from who you are. You're terrified of yourself. So getting alone was huge for me. You really get to hear yourself when you're alone. You get to hear the thoughts that plague you. You get to hear just like how mean and critical you are to yourself. But if you're distracted all the time, or you have people or you have conversation around you all the time, then that can be helpful and beneficial at times, but you really need to get alone. I remember when I was younger, I was such a busybody. It's when I met my husband. He's loves to be alone. And I would try to pack every moment of my life with some sort of activity, with some sort of person that's there. And this was back before social media really was a thing. And I remember he turned and looked at me one day and was like, you need to learn how to be alone. It was terrifying to think of back then and actually quite offensive, but I crave alone time now, and I know when I have not had time to be alone. It messes with me. I'm no good for anybody else when I haven't had my time alone. So think about going out to a social event where you already are most likely very empathic. You need a lot of energy, you use a lot of your resources, you pull in a lot of that energy around you, but you've not been alone. You're going to feel so much more overwhelmed. Your nervous system's going to be so much more taxed. You're going to go into fight or flight mode because you haven't been alone with yourself. So here's the thing to understand. If you don't like to be alone because you're afraid of your thoughts are just thoughts. Your feelings are just feelings. And maybe if you spent some time alone, you might be able to sort through some of those thoughts and some of those feelings, even if you need to journal while you're at it, just to get those things out of your head and out of you so that you can sort through like what is true here and what is not true. Because sometimes just sorting between what's real and what's bullshit can really be eye-opening. Like, I remember back in the day, I'm talking about my husband again, where I used to ask him, my mind was so plagued all the time with like thoughts and just this like running narrative. And I used to ask him when he just looked like he was in deep thought, what are you thinking about? And he would say, nothing. And I'm like, what do you mean nothing? Like, there's nothing going on in your head? And he'd be like, nothing. I know what he's talking about now. It took years to get here, but sometimes you need to be alone with yourself, sort through all of that garbage, all of that noise. Some of it's helpful. Also, when your mind is going like that and you're not alone, your body is speaking too. And if you are turning red, my friend, that is your body sending you a message. And if you're not spending time alone, you have no freaking clue where to even begin on what the narrative is because you're so stuck here. Sorry, I hit the microphone. You're so stuck here and you're so disconnected from this that they're just in conflict with each other. And so until you get alone, start sorting through those thoughts, start sorting through those feelings, and start getting into the feeling of your body, which is a whole different topic, you're going to struggle to heal. Get alone, journal, brain dump. Do you know what a brain dump is? It's where you just take a notebook and you just write. Like, don't worry about if it makes sense. Don't worry about if your handwriting's good. Don't even worry about if you can reread it. It's not really to reread. It's to take thoughts and dump them on paper. And so here's an example of what that would look like. You would grab your journal, grab your pen, and like, let's see if I was doing it right now. Turn my camera. I would write, the air is cold on my toes. Tony just went to go pick up the baby from daycare. Oh shoot, I need to finish this to-do that I put on my list today. I wonder what time Trinity's game starts this afternoon. I wonder if my mom is having a good time in Oklahoma. That dream I had last night was so weird. Like, you get the idea. Like, it's a full-blown stream of thoughts. And you can keep going, and it gets crazy and kind of fun sometimes, but that's called a brain dump. Do that, especially when you feel so overwhelmed. Don't worry about the beauty of a journal entry. Write that shit out on paper. Get that out of your head, out of your body, onto paper. It will help significantly, I promise. When you get some of that noise out, you can really sit with yourself and think, what am I saying to me? Who am I? What do I want? What do I not want? How do I feel? How did this make me feel when I was with this person? How did this conversation make me feel? And you start to, it's almost like imagine light in your body, like little elements like start lighting up inside of you. And that's where you know you need to put your focus and attention of what are you saying to me? I have silenced you for so long and I'm so sorry. Am I even nice to myself? Get alone and find out. Listen, it's going to be uncomfortable, but growth is often uncomfortable. All right, number 2, guard what's coming in. This is part of a spiritual practice that I believe it's a spiritual practice because you are honoring yourself by guarding what's coming into your life. So you are the gatekeeper of your life, of your mind. And when you realize that things come in through your sight, your senses, your hearing, your mind, and into your body and how we perceive and process information, then you will start to gatekeep your life a little bit better. So that specifically, let's talk about the news, social media, things that are in your algorithm that you have somehow drummed that up. It's funny how if you stop paying attention to certain things on the algorithm or putting a thumbs down on it or skipping by it really quickly, the algorithm will recalibrate to try to meet you where you're at. So look at your life that way. What are you attracting into your life? What are you spending time being a part of conversations that are complete trash and garbage? And you know it. What are you watching on TV? What news are you playing? The other day, somebody said to me, "Oh, I don't watch the news. I just turn it on every morning and listen to the weather." Like, bro, we have a weather app. You don't have to look at the news in order to get the weather. When you turn the news on, you are hearing so much more than just the weather. So that's my own personal preference is I just keep the news out and I look up what do I actually want to know about. If it's not in my sphere, or I'm not going to support it, or I'm not going to physically support it, or in a monetary way try to support it, or with my voice try to support it, it's not for me. And I would rather put my energy and efforts elsewhere. Sometimes you need to take a break from social media. You just need to get off of there so you can think for yourself and start to realize how you're being programmed, because you're always being programmed and sold something. And we joke about it like, oh, I saw it on TikTok and I bought it. But it's like, do we really want to brag about that? Like, if I am being persuaded to purchase something that I wasn't even looking for this morning, what else am I being programmed to believe or to see? I'm just saying. This is a hard one, but set boundaries with people. As the gatekeeper of your mind, oftentimes you're going to have to set boundaries with people, and oftentimes it's going to be your family and those closest to you, because those are the people that are draining you and hurting you and helping to keep that narrative going that is also creating negative self-talk in your own mind because you're believing something that some authoritative person in your family said to you in the past. And that is the tape that plays in your mind that sounds like your voice, but truly it's their voice. So there's a book called Boundaries. I will link it below. It changed my life. I'm sure there's so many other books out there now about boundaries, but this one many years ago was the first book I read about putting a gate around your life. And they reference this, like, this is how I remember it. It could be totally wrong. This is how I remember it back then with that mindset, is like, you have a house, you have a yard, and you have this gate, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, you're trying to go to bed, you have structure in your life, and people are having a full-on kegger on your lawn, like with their red Solo cups music. It's loud. There's all kinds of stuff happening out there, and you're trying to go to sleep. It's your yard. So that fence is there for a reason. You can set the rules on your property. You can go outside and tell them, hey guys, you're more than welcome to come do this on Saturday night at like 6 when I'm here. But like, you can't do this on a Tuesday at 10, 11 o'clock at night. Like, I'm not allowing that. And then you just get them out of your yard and you shut the gate. It's really that simple, but it's what we're believing about setting those boundaries that terrify us. And really that comes down to a whole different video about like, what am I believing that is keeping me from setting proper boundaries? But as the gatekeeper of your life, you've got to be able to set boundaries, because then you can get very clear about what are my thoughts and what are their thoughts and how do I feel after I'm with them. So when you get a little space and distance between you and the people around you, when you go meet up with those people for dinner or a hangout or a phone conversation or a text conversation, you start to realize, I don't feel so great after talking to this individual. And then you have some time in your alone time to self-reflect and think about, is that me? Is that them? Is this like all this different stuff? And what is the weird attachment that I've got to this situation or this person? And how much more distance should I put between me and this person? Boundaries are to protect your relationships, not harm them. So when you're trying to keep somebody in your life because you love them and you care about them, but they might be hurting you because they're a family member and they've been doing that for so many years, they don't know any other way, and that's just what you've always allowed them to do, then setting boundaries is tough. The biggest risk that you run into is, are they going to leave me? Are they going to stop loving me? That's always a factor, and it can always happen. But usually people get a little pissed off and then they're okay. But you got to set boundaries, so at least explore the topic. If you don't create some sort of structure in your life and your thoughts and your relationships, set some boundaries, it is going to decline. Your whole life is going to decline into chaos. So if you've got a lot of chaos going on around you, then there's going to be a lot of chaos going on inside of you. And if a lot of chaos is going on inside of you and you blush and flush, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get out of that loop because you've got so many other loops running that's like the least of your concerns. Guard what's coming in. All right, number 3, let's talk about somatics. Somatics is simply having to do with the body and not the mind. Feeling your body, knowing what's going on. For me, when it came to and comes to flushing, anything in my throat or in my chest, I will start to feel pins and needles when I'm uncomfortable. Sometimes I'm comfortable, but I'm having an interaction with a new person and I feel that feeling in my body. It's my intuition. It is my body speaking to me. Now, in the past, and even now, if I have something going on and I feel this like pins and needles in my chest and in my neck, I've got some videos on this. Actually, I was on a call with my boss the other day and we were having a great conversation, and I've been on such a healing journey, but during that conversation, I felt those pins and needles coming up in my throat. And it wasn't that I was flushing or getting extremely red or uncomfortable. It's that my body was still purging. And so because we were in an environment where I felt very safe, my body was still trying to purge some of that old energy out. And so I got off the call. I have it recorded. You can watch it here on YouTube. I think it's called Blushing and Somatics, and it's raw, and I am like crying and weeping and moving and moving my body, and it looks really weird, and people all over Instagram, you can view it on TikTok as well, like just look up somatic movements, and it looks freaking crazy, but it is incredible. I've been doing this for years. I had no idea that this was called somatics. I didn't know what it was. Back when I was religious, this is one of the weird religious things that I would do. Well, not really. This is one of the weird things I would do in religion that religious people were like, I don't know, that's kind of weird. So I kept it hidden for a long time, but I showed it on my YouTube channel because I was like, you guys need to see it. You need to see that, yes, things are put together sometimes, but this is like a hot mess, and this is what healing looks like behind the scenes. And it doesn't have to always be on public display. I just put it here so you guys could see it, but you don't have to videotape it and TikTok it. You can just do it whenever you feel the need. I found this, I can't remember where I found this, so I'm sorry, but I saw this, I can't remember, but it says somatics is a movement therapy, a way of re-educating the way our brain senses and moves the muscles. It's incredibly subtle but effective way of working the body. So you're working through trauma in the body and feelings in the body. Love it. And this can be yoga, stretching, the weird somatic movements that I do. I call them weird. They're not really weird. It's just being a person. Thinking about when you were a kid and you would like move around and flail your body, and then we got taught not to do that anymore and we became very rigid. You're just going back to like that stuff, right? Like think of a kid who's hurt, like a small kid. How are they going to react? Get alone and do that shit. When we let ourselves move, we let energy move through us, we stop blocking that energy flow, that starts to loosen up all of that old stagnant energy that's just trapped. Let it move. It wants to move out. Like I said, for myself, a lot of times if I start getting a flushing reaction, most times it's because I'm betraying myself in some way. And that is either because I'm really bad at this. Like if I need to be somewhere at a certain time, let's say I have to be at like a kid's, like my kid's volleyball tournament, and I am at work or I'm out having lunch, a business lunch, and I need to go, and I know I need to go. And I'm not setting the appropriate boundary either by telling the person, hey, I got to get ready to leave soon, or I'm so enthralled by the conversation and I love it so much, but there's like this part of me that knows you need to go, because the thing that you are serving first is your child and you need to go there. But your actions right now are not speaking to that being the most important thing. This is the most important thing. For many years, it's because I felt like I was defaulting back into, what are they going to think about me? And I don't want them to be upset with me because I have to leave. I'm way better at this now. I'll set the expectation up front with somebody. Like, I have a hard stop at this time. And it gets so loud in my body. Like, this area starts to get like so stinking loud that I have to. I can't even listen to the person anymore. I'm like, sorry to interrupt you. Listen, I got to go. And I go. But a lot of times that is the only time I'm really experiencing flushing, is when I'm betraying myself. I'm also very intuitive, so I may not always know what's up, but in environments, I know when something's chaotic in a person or in the environment, even if everything looks really calm and steady. If I am tired or thirsty or hungry, just need to recharge or need to be alone, I will start to flush quite often because my body is begging for me to give it what it needs. And it's usually because I'm not honoring myself, my body, the things I love most, my people, or my time. So the more you get in tune with your body by feeling and letting things move and doing somatic work, the more you will become more sensitive to those things when you're out and about, and then you're able to evaluate a little better. Number 4 is called light language. Like, I'm not going to go deep into this because I don't know. I've looked into it before and people claim that they know what it is, and it's these energetic frequencies. It's stuff that I did when I was religious. In religion, Christianity, they call it tongues. It was always considered very weird, but I can speak it. And I got this gift because when I was religious, I was writing in my journal and I was praying for some sort of spiritual gifting. And I remember when I was writing in my journal that it was like that presence of God was like, pray to me, I'm going to give it to you. And I was like, okay. And then I just started talking, and it sounded like strange and weird and very like English, like the way we talk as English people. And then it just clicked. And it's like, you can tell if you've ever learned to speak a different language. Like, I remember when I was learning to speak Spanish, you use different parts of your tongue. So that thing clicked and I can speak that language. And it's really helpful, especially like when my dad was sick and you just don't have the words to express. And it goes really closely with somatics for me, because if I use like body movement with light language, it just feels like you're having a breakthrough. So anytime I've been in deep pain or sadness or joy and I don't quite have the words to express, I can tap into that light language and it just helps like move everything so freely. So light language has been a huge channel for me, especially partnered with movement and somatics. I don't know how to explain all of it. You can definitely look into it. There's some weird stuff out there. So I guess it depends on like your level of weird, but anybody trying to sell you a course on how to speak light language, I would be very leery of that, because I think anytime we want to try to charge people for spiritual awakening, I get a little weirded out about that. I do think that it has a lot to do with opening my throat chakra. So if you look into chakras, you're into chakra stuff, I think light language helps with that. The one thing that I read that actually made sense to my spirit was that it is a vibrational frequency that helps like just open up things and move things around and connect us to that higher power and essence around us. All right, number 5, and probably the most important. But before I get into that, if you're finding this video helpful and you've enjoyed any of what I've said so far, if anything has resonated with you, please give the video a like and be sure to subscribe. It really helps the channel out and supports the work that we're doing here to let everybody know that they're not alone as they find this channel and find the community that is here. Also, if you're interested in understanding and knowing more about erythrophobia, because maybe you've just figured out that there's actually a word for fearing blushing called erythrophobia, I do have an ebook on it. It's called Understanding Erythrophobia, Reframing How We View Blushing. And this book is like a 101 type understanding the fear of blushing, as well as some practical tips that helped me that might be able to help you as you navigate your journey of overcoming erythrophobia. Feel free to check that out in the description box. All right, so number 5, here we go. Visualization. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? I've talked about this in other videos before because I believe it's incredibly important, is you have to know who you're going to be when you get there. And here is an example from my own life. So I moved to where my company is. I work for a remote company, but I'm closer to my team members now. And we've had a few functions in person or lunches in person. And during visualization, which can be partnered with meditation, obviously everybody's talking about meditation. I didn't add that into our 5 practical spiritual tips here, but it's because I didn't want to go into 6. And so meditation and visualization, I can put them together. But in that meditation, you can rehearse who you want to be. How do you want to show up? How do you want to look when you get there? And so if you are dreading showing up to the dinner because you already know you're going to turn red and then you're going to make a run for the bathroom and people are going to look at you and you're going to be uncomfortable and you kind of want to have a drink, but drinking makes you flush as well. And it's just like this whole doom and gloom situation. You are visualizing in that moment what's going to happen. And because it's happened in the past, it can easily happen again because you're already setting that in motion by your thoughts and the visualization and the fear that you're creating around every aspect of that in-person meeting or dinner or whatever it may be. So take that power and take that energy, get alone, get quiet, sit with your eyes closed, get in a meditation or whatever that looks like for you, and start visualizing how you're going to show up to that dinner. So if I have a dinner on Tuesday, I already know what I'm going to wear, how I'm going to look, how I'm going to present myself, what my energy is going to be like when I start to flush, because a lot of times if we go into this with, I'm not going to turn red, as soon as you start to turn red in person in that space, everything's gone. You feel like you have failed. You feel like you can't get your bearings. It's all over. So I highly encourage you to get your focus off of whether you turn red or don't turn red. It's just like, let that be. It's awesome when we don't, but a lot of times we're going to. And so your success is not measured by, did I turn red or not? It's about, how did I keep going when I turned red? So if I go into the situation, I would love to visualize that I'm not going to turn red. And I do. But what I also do with another part of that visualization is that I do see myself turning red. If I start to turn red, I'm changing it in my visualization from being this big fucking deal to being just part of who I am. Nobody cares. Literally, the people that I'm meeting with don't care. They're not going to say a word about it. They already know about this situation, overactive nervous system. They're not going to say a word about it. And in that visualization, I let myself know that I'm free, that I'm seen, that that's a good thing to be seen, by the way, that I'm safe in that environment. And I'm just going to continue talking. I'm going to feel that feeling. I'm going to breathe and let my nervous system know that it's safe. And we're just going to keep moving forward, because the only way to send that message back to the body that we're safe here is to keep going through the motions. If I shy away, if I hide, if I run, if I start the negative self-talk loop in my mind, I'm just going to reinforce that blushing is bad and that I'm bad because I blush and that I'm not worthy because I blush. And that is bullshit. Like, you have to start living the life that you want now while you blush, instead of waiting to stop blushing so that you can live the life that you want. It doesn't work that way. This is a mental rehearsal and you are in control of it. Oh my gosh, Joe Dispenza, you guys are going to hear me talk about him all the time. Joe Dispenza talks about this mental rehearsal situation. You'll have to go check him out and like Google this to hear him say it the way he says it. But I'm going to tell you my summary of what I think I heard him say. He was talking about there were 2 groups of people and they were teaching them chords on a piano. The first group, they took them and actually physically taught them the chords on the piano, and they played these songs on the piano. Then you had another group that mentally practice these chords. They mentally practice. Then the people who were conducting this experiment brought these people that were mentally practicing to the piano, and they played the chords as if they were physically playing them the whole time. The mind didn't know the difference between the mental rehearsal and the physical rehearsal. Like, that should get you so stinking excited. I mean, it like amped me. You are creating new neurons that are firing together. They are firing together, which means they're going to start to wire together. But a lot of times it doesn't happen just on the first try. It's a repetitive action, a repetitive thought, a repetitive showing up, a repetitive belief that starts to make those neurons wire together once they've been firing together long enough. They're creating a relationships. It's fine if the visualization is not perfect the first time. All right, and one more story I'll tell you that I heard a long time ago, and I can't think of her name. But she definitely deserves credit because this changed my life. She's a public speaker. She was, speaking of religion, she was back in the Christianity days. I believe she's a Christian speaker. And she was telling this story about how she just always like had suicidal thoughts and stuff. And when she started realizing that she could change her mind, she visualized this snow falling onto the street. And the whole land was covered in snow. And there is this one path that she always walks, which was, in her words, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself. So this was a clear path because these were the neurons that were firing together. These were the thoughts. This was the visual preparation that she had created based off of her beliefs and her thoughts and her feelings. And so the snow was falling, but because she was constantly paving this path with her feet or plowing or whatever she was doing, it was a clear path. And then when she started realizing that she could actually change her thoughts and change her life, she became so self-aware that when the thoughts came, I want to kill myself, she stopped and she would go, no, I don't. And she would push against a path that was covered in snow. You don't even know the path is there, but she felt like, I can plow this snow. And so then, nothing happens because it's just one time. And then she goes back down I want to kill myself. I want to kill myself. I want to kill myself. And then she would stop and say, no, I don't want to kill myself. And she would push the snow plow the other direction. And then she would say, I don't want to kill myself. I want to live. And she would push the snow plow again the other direction. And she would say, I am worth living. I am worthy. I have so much to offer to this life. And she would push the snow plow again until eventually she's spending so much time plowing this other direction, even though it's hard and there's no path to be seen, that the snow is still falling. But now it's starting to cover up the tracks of the other path, which is, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself. And because she's not in this rut anymore, thinking these thoughts over and over again, now she's spending time over here saying, I want to live, I want to thrive, I want to have abundance in my life, that she's starting to plow and plow and plow until eventually she starts to plow down the snow and create a new path. And now this other path is completely covered in snow. It's not even there anymore unless you start plowing that path again. That visual aspect of plowing the snow radically changed my life. And I believe this for us, and I know this for us with erythrophobia because I have overcome it myself. And you can watch the whole progression of that happen on this channel if you go back at the beginning and just watch these videos all the way through up to this point, that I had that snowplow and I was really consumed by what my beliefs were around turning red and being just so lost and confused and feeling so small and limited in my life. And now I sit over here and I talk to you from this space of abundance and freedom and just like everything is so big and wide and there's so much more to life. I don't know why I said big and wide. It's what I saw in my head. Like there was just abundance. There's an overflow of abundance, and the only limits that we have are those that we put on ourselves. You are not limited because you blush. You're limited because you believe you're limited because you're blushing. You're not enslaved to blushing. You're enslaved to the mindset that you have about blushing. And that goes with anything in your life. These are the 5 spiritual practices that were huge in my life for overcoming erythrophobia. And I'm so glad I got to share them with you today. I know that this was a bit lengthier than most videos, but I feel like it was really, really important to share these deeper aspects of spirituality. I didn't want to give you just some cookie cutter 5 tips. So leave in the comments below if you had a light bulb moment. Tell me any tips that you have from a spiritual practice. And I love when you share your information because this is our space together, and somebody may be reading the comments and need exactly what you need to offer and share from your perspective. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't. And I will meet you back here next week. And until then, you better rise and thrive.
So rise up, rise up, rise up. When you've had enough, when the crowd gets rough, gotta stand up straight, gonna rise like a champion.